April 2020, the Caribbean Sea. A Venezuelan patrol boat closes in on an American destroyer at high speed. Weapon systems hot, radio silence. On the bridge of the USS Nitze, sailors watch their screens. The Venezuelan vessel is 500 yards away, then 300, then 200. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and this could ignite a regional conflict. But what happened next wasn't a hail of missiles or the roar of naval guns. It was something far more terrifying. This is the story of how Venezuela tested the United States Navy and learned a lesson they'll never forget. To understand what happened that day, you need to understand the players. Venezuela, once South America's richest nation, has been in free fall for over a decade. Economic collapse, political chaos, and a military desperately trying to project strength it no longer has. The Venezuelan Navy operates a fleet of aging Cold War-era vessels, patrol boats, corvettes, and submarines that are decades past their prime. Most are barely operational, but under Nicolas Maduro's regime, they've been increasingly used for one purpose: intimidation. On the other side, the United States Navy, the USS Nitze, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, is one of the most advanced warships ever built. Aegis combat system, Tomahawk cruise missiles, electronic warfare suites that can blind an enemy before they even know they're under attack. And in April 2020, the Nitze was operating in international waters near Venezuela as part of an ongoing counter-narcotics mission. That's when things got tense. April 19, 2020, the Nitze was conducting routine operations, monitoring maritime traffic, gathering intelligence, asserting freedom of navigation. Then on radar, a Venezuelan patrol boat, fast, aggressive, closing distance. This wasn't unusual. Venezuelan vessels had been shadowing U.S. ships for weeks. But this time was different. The patrol boat, a Guayquerí-class vessel armed with machine guns and light missiles, began transmitting aggressive radio messages, demanding the Nitze leave Venezuelan waters. There was just one problem. The Nitze was in international waters, legally, undeniably. The Venezuelan captain didn't care. He ordered his boat to close within 200 yards, a dangerously close distance in naval terms. In combat doctrine, that's practically knife-fighting range. On the bridge of the Nitze, Captain Richard Camacho had a decision to make. Engage, back down, escalate. He chose option 3, dominate without firing a shot. What the Venezuelan crew didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that the moment they entered the Nitze's engagement zone, they were already outmatched. The Aegis combat system had locked onto them the second they appeared on radar. Fire control solutions calculated, weapons ready. But Captain Camacho didn't give the order to fire. Instead, he authorized something more subtle, more chilling: electronic warfare. The Nitze's ANSLQ-32 electronic warfare suite, one of the most advanced in the world, went active. Within seconds, the Venezuelan patrol boat's radar screens went dark. Their GPS navigation scrambled, radio communications jammed. From the Venezuelan crew's perspective, they'd just gone blind. One moment, they were aggressively posturing. The next, they couldn't see, couldn't navigate, couldn't communicate, and they had no idea how it happened. In naval warfare, this is called soft kill, neutralizing an enemy without kinetic force. And it's terrifying because it's invisible, silent, total. The Venezuelan captain, realizing his ship was compromised, made the only rational choice. He turned around and fled. But this wasn't just about one patrol boat. This was about messaging. For months, Venezuela had been testing U.S. resolve, harassing coalition vessels, violating maritime law, trying to project power it didn't have. The U.S. response strategy was carefully calibrated. Don't escalate. Don't engage kinetically, but demonstrate overwhelming dominance. And it worked. After the April 19th incident, Venezuelan naval harassment dropped sharply. Why? Because word spread through their ranks. The Americans don't need to fire. They can just turn your ship into a floating brick. This is modern naval warfare. It's not about who has the biggest guns. It's about who controls the information space, who can see, communicate, and navigate. And in that domain, the U.S. Navy is untouchable. But let's pause and consider the alternative. What if Captain Camacho had escalated? What if the Venezuelan captain had opened fire first? Naval analysts have run the scenarios. They're not pretty. If the Nitze had engaged kinetically, the Venezuelan patrol boat would have been obliterated in under 30 seconds. A single SM-2 missile or a 5-inch gun salvo, game over. But then what? Regional tensions explode. Venezuela claims U.S. aggression. Russia and China, both Venezuelan allies, weigh in diplomatically. Maduro uses the incident to rally domestic support. Suddenly, a local skirmish becomes an international crisis. That's why the silent but deadly response was brilliant. No casualties, no wreckage, no headlines screaming, U.S. sinks Venezuelan ship. Just a quiet, humiliating lesson. Don't test us. In the weeks following the April incident, something interesting happened. Venezuelan naval activity near U.S. vessels plummeted. No more aggressive intercepts, no more radio provocations. They'd learned their lesson. But the broader impact was even more significant. This incident became a case study in U.S. Naval War College classrooms, a textbook example of escalation management, how to dominate an adversary without firing a shot. It also sent a message to other regional actors, China, Russia, Iran. The U.S. Navy doesn't need to flex, it doesn't need to posture, it just needs to exist. And that's deterrence enough. For Venezuela, the incident was a stark reminder of their decline. Once a regional power, now reduced to aging patrol boats that can't even navigate when faced with modern electronic warfare. And for the sailors aboard the Nitze, they went back to their routine operations. Just another day, just another crisis averted. Because in the U.S. Navy, this is what professionalism looks like. So what does this story teach us? It teaches us that modern warfare isn't always about firepower. It's about control. Control of information, control of the electromagnetic spectrum, control of the narrative. The Venezuelan patrol boat that day wasn't defeated by missiles or guns. It was defeated by superiority, technological, tactical, and psychological. And perhaps most importantly, this story teaches us about restraint. In a world where tensions are rising, where provocations are constant, the ability to not escalate is just as powerful as the ability to strike. Captain Camacho and his crew could have started a war that day. Instead, they prevented one. That's the real power of the United States Navy. Not just the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to. Venezuela tested the waters. They learned the hard way. Some challenges aren't worth making, because the response might not be loud, but it will be devastating.